Hey, how you guys doing? What a day it's been, huh? Well, I hope you've had a great day. I've really felt the Spirit strongly today. I went on a nice run after lunch, and you probably saw some the Spirit hit me in the earlier videos. Well, we'll see what happens. We're on blog topic 7 of the obedient steps of faith. And that is a very controversial statement here. Faith doesn't come from reading Bible verses. Now, I went to five Bible colleges, valedictorian in one of them, straight A's in all of them, and they won't tell you that, but they're making a lot of money. They made a lot of money off of me. And I sold Christian books for a couple years at Gospel Supplies, and I sold them all to the pastors. All the pastors knew me because I knew my books, and I got them into the right books. And a lot of those books say faith comes from reading the Bible. So isn't that funny? And but that's not what the New Testament says at all. Faith doesn't come from reading Bibles. There's 900 English Bibles, and they're all different. So you're going to be in for shock when you look at Bible Gateway and you compare verses, and you see there's quite a bit of difference. There's quite a bit of difference between English versions. Now, I use Bible Info tab, and I go from the original Greek and the original Hebrew, and I try to bring that all out for you, and I show you how to use those tools. I was showing pastors how to use all these tools and getting them books. I had $1,000 worth of book. I had 1,000 books. I mean, lots of money wrapped up in books. But now you can use a lot of these tools online, save you a lot of time. So definitely look at Bible Info. Well, where does faith come from? We've been following what the definition of faith is. It has nothing to do with information. It's not gnosis information where we get diagnosis. It's not head knowledge. It turns out that it's a relationship knowledge that you gain through experience. And that gives you trust and dependence and reliance on a person, never a thing. So we're going to find out some shocking stuff here. I was shocked. I've read this book thousands of times. I really have, since 1980. And from the original languages, had to do so many dissertations and theses and papers. And, so I've dissected it so many different ways. And I'm trying to simplify that for you. And then you can look through it and make up your own darn mind, as they say. So there's lots of verses. Go look at the full text link. That's what you want to do. But right now, we start out in joy of the Lord. Spontaneous music is generated by the Holy Spirit. The anointing gives you that, and it's prophetic. So sometimes the Lord gives me words of knowledge, words of whatever. And you can see that in the God Messages page and the Declarations page. But let's just see. See, I have a lot of faith. I trust. I've learned how to just let go and let God. There's a surrender page. I'm focusing on the Lord. That's what I do. And I let go, and I go with the flow. I jump in the stream. He's shown me so many things over the years, watching the stream flow. And so look how effortless it is. Look at the things floating on top of the stream. It was just in the wash. We had a big flood, and boy, the water was just rushing down the wash. He says, that's what I'm talking about. You know, look how those logs, those big heavy logs, are just moved along by the current. And he says, that's what I mean. Just jump in to the flow of the Holy Spirit and trust. Go with the flow. Let go of your control and let God. So you can see I make mistakes sometimes when I start trying to control things and I start trying to think about things. But we have to stop doing that. That's called the new song David's talking about, the new song in the Psalms. All right, well, let's read the text here and see what the Lord spontaneously brings for us. All of us will end up putting our trusting, relying faith in something, and that's non-biblical. We found out that's not the biblical definition of faith, right? Maybe it's the English definition, but it's not the biblical definition. Or some person. Now that's biblical. The Jews still trust in Moses. I have a Jewish friend. And his law of works for righteousness. 613 commandments. Problem is nobody's done them. Nobody can do them. So they had a sacrificial system. Guess what? They don't have a sacrificial system. They have no temple to do all these intricate sacrifices, and without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness of sins. So the hocus pocus that the rabbis came up with after the temple was destroyed in AD 70 is just hocus pocus. You know, Jesus says your traditions make void the word of God. The Logos message was written down in the Old Testament, and he said it made it void. The traditions. So after AD 70, when the temple was destroyed, they came up with more traditions. And they convinced the Jewish people, they are convinced to this day. But really, you shouldn't be convinced, because the law is very clear. There has to be sacrifices of sin. And there is no sacrifices going on. And so they're desperate to get that third temple built. They are very desperate because, really, according to the law of God, they're not forgiven. They haven't been forgiven for 2,000 years. The Gentiles, and that's because they rejected their Messiah. Now, there is a lot of Jews, don't get me wrong, Jews for Jesus, a lot of other organizations that are head over heels, even more zealous for Yeshua is the name in Hebrew. And so they're way more zealous than most Gentiles in the Messiah, Jesus. And so Jesus is a Greek word. Jesus. Jesus is in Greek, and then it got a J from Germans, and it got all messed up. But it's really Yeshua, or Yahoshua, or Yahshua. There's different pronunciations. The Gentiles trust in gods. There's a lot of gods all over the world. Philosophy, all kinds of philosophy. They trust in other people, their leaders, their own good deeds. Oh yeah, there's a lot of people say, I'm a good person, or their possessions. They feel they're creating kingdoms on earth, and they're putting a lot of trust in that. That's where they put their trust, their dependence, and their reliance. Right? So that's their faith. And you see this in a lot of religions. There's a lot of gods. Hindus have a lot of gods. The Islam their god is Allah. And I don't know. Just look around, look throughout history. It doesn't look like Allah has helped them very much. They're all in poverty, and they're always killing each other. All these factions. And so, I don't know. It doesn't look like Allah is really taking care of them. Not a lot of blessing there. They're all fighting, and they're all poor. And they're all like 100 years behind everybody else. So Bible students like the Jewish scribes and Pharisees, they didn't really mentally see to perceive or know God. That's that inner knowledge. And there's verses for all this. The scribes and Pharisees, they knew a lot about the Bible, but they didn't perceive or know about God. And Jesus pointed this out. They rejected and even killed God's Son, their own Messiah. They actually killed all the prophets. That's what they did, all the prophets. In their time, yep. So it wasn't very good. All through history, they killed their prophets. And then finally, they're God's own Son. And so it didn't really work for them, did it? The Bible study. And are cursed because they did absolutely, in fact, not experientially, relationally know the season of their visitation. Jesus said that. You messed up. You should have known. You should have personally experienced the season of your visitation. And so they're cursed. They even called a curse down upon them during his death. May his blood be upon our head and on the heads of our children. That's terrible. They called a curse down on themselves, repeating what they did to their own prophets. Okay, well, I already said that. Right. They just repeated what they did. There's lots of verses for this. It is they who put their trusting, relying faith. Right? They killed their prophets. It was these very people that put their trusting, relying faith in grammar writings. That's where we get grammar, and collected into graphe scriptures that Jesus implied were erroneously, these scribes and Pharisees, he says they were in error, supposing or opinionating that in, by, or with them, you can take it all three ways, they would hold to have Zoe genuine life. They would take hold to have. All right? They would take hold to have, to possess Zoe genuine life everlasting. But it is they who miss the whole point of the Old Testament as Jesus continues. But these scriptures, right? These scriptures are they that are routinely bearing witness or testifying all around about me. They're all around about me. So these things testify about me. They witnessed about me. And yet you presently, ongoingly, refuse to come to me. Get that? Come to me as a person that you might take hold to have Zoe genuine life. So that's where Zoe genuine life comes from. It didn't come from the scriptures. It comes from the Messiah that the scriptures simply testified about. But they missed the whole point. So they were looking for life in all the wrong places. They were looking for life in all the wrong places. Now, I'm not going to beat them up. I got into this. I got into 5 Bible colleges. I bought 1,000 books. I had a huge library that went across the entire room of my house. My office. It went across the entire room. And so I got sucked into this too. I was told, like they were told, that you're going to find the secrets of the kingdom of God in that book. Everything you need. I was told, people hold this book up and they say, everything you need to know is in this book. That is a lie from the pit of hell. That is religion. That is what they believed. That's what they believed, and Jesus says, you do not know God, nor do you love God. And you will perish in your sins, guaranteed, because you refuse to come to me. So, and they say everything you need to know about life and how to live life is in this book. That is a lie. That is not the truth. That's not what they say about it. They don't say that about their writings at all. They do not say that. Okay, so if you place your trusting, relying faith in the accuracy of what has survived time, as our Bible, you know, my goodness, the Old Testament was 1,500 years old by the time Jesus came along. 800 to 1,500 years. And then there's been 2,000 years since. And if you put your faith in the accuracy of what has survived time, as our Bible, then your faith is misplaced. I got some land to sell you in Florida. But, you know, I failed to tell you that most of it's underwater after that big storm they had. For example, instead of using long tables to roll out, that's what they used to use, these long tables, to roll out all the manuscript scrolls, right, for comparative study, as the early Jewish scribes and Pharisees did. There's plenty of blogs on this, and you can go look at that. Lots of information if you want to check out what these tables were and how they studied. They do it to this day. They roll these scrolls out. There's so many different scrolls, different ages from different archaeological discoveries. But nowadays, they don't want to expose these ancient scrolls to degrading air or light. So instead, the scholars piece together manuscripts under UV safe, airtight glass. That's what they do, and they use digital high resolution satellite cameras. That's what they do. They use these high resolution cameras, and they use computer analysis to aid the lengthy process of determining copying scribe insertions in the margins. So they can see where copyists, monks, a lot of monks, they put stuff in the margins. And then those things got into the text. And those texts got copied and copied and copied. So we can see in the margins how they inserted stuff. And we can see erasures. We can see corrections. We can even see previously underlying text, older manuscripts, because the materials were often washed, right, of the older writings. And so we can actually see older writings. And so we're discovering many, many things. The labor intensively using computers, right, to put the fragments together to form their best guess. They labor intensely, right, using computers to put the fragments together, putting all these little pieces. You know, they find a lot of these things in trash cans. I don't think they really viewed the Bible as we view the Bible. You know, we practically worship it. But these manuscripts were just thrown in the trash. They weren't that big of a deal. They didn't view them as a Bible, as holy or authoritative, even until 350, 400 years after the fact. You know, you can go look at all this. And so they're forming their best guess of the original text. And they're still forming their best guess. But it is their best guess. It's very complicated and time-consuming. And that's what these scholars do. There are around, I know this is really upsetting to a lot of people, but it is the truth. If you bury your head in the sand, then you're just believing propaganda. But this is the truth. There are over 400,000 textual variants of the New Testament alone. A staggering number when coupled with the fact that there are only 138,000 words in the Greek New Testament, meaning there are almost 3 variants per word. Now, not 3 variants for every single word, but that's what it comes out to in average. However, less than 4,000, that's about 2.8% of the New Testament, have a good chance of being authentic and changing the meaning of the text. And this is what Tim Barnett writes in 5/24/2016. They have discovered much more since then because they have new technology. How many of those 4,000 variants change Christian doctrine radically? Yes, many. Furthermore, if you read the scholarly papers, right, like I do, there are, and you can too, there is much ongoing debate just about everything in this process of textual criticism. So there's debate about the whole process. That's what these scholars do for a living. They make great money too. They crave debate, they argue over words and controversies about the manuscripts that breed quarrels, end quote. But this is exactly what the New Testament repeatedly says not to be involved in. And that's what they were involved in because Jesus didn't do any of this. He didn't get involved in any of this. And to avoid the scribes and the law teachers like the plague who stir up divisions. So, the early church was like, don't talk to those people. They will stir up divisions. A terrible leaven to beware of, right? That would now spread throughout the entire loaf. That's what Jesus warned them. Beware of the scribes and Pharisees, the leaven. It will go through the loaf. You see, their way to know God was a flawed way. Super flawed. Bible study. That's what the scholarly approach to Christianity has indeed done. It has caused havoc on the whole world. That makes they make lots of money doing this also, and there is so much illegal buying and selling of ancient manuscripts. There's an entire black market. Yeah, go look at it's Biblical Archaeological Review (BAR). They're always talking about this black market trade, and there's forgeries and there's all kinds of things. There's so much money in this quest for the Holy Bible. There's so much money in it. When you stop buying into Christian propaganda, because that's churchianity, if you read church history, you can see how all these things get started and how they can. Winds of doctrine, all right? Winds of doctrine. They just blow through the church. I was in a Christian bookstore, like I said, and I saw so much garbage being sold on the shelves. Garbage, pure garbage. And sometimes we catch it and pull it off. But it was very, very sad. And the Christian Booksellers Associations gives their hands down approval. You sell that stuff as long as it makes money. And it's garbage. It's doctrines of demons. Absolute doctrines of demons. And this is how the church has been affected. And so when you stop buying the Christian propaganda, really look at the manuscripts, right? The original, all that we have, manuscript evidence, and you look at church history of the Old Testament and New Testament canon, that's the books that they say are part of the Bible. It's all over the map. It's changed over history, big time. It has changed, and the verdict is still out. They're still arguing about what should be in the book. Really, they are, and what's supposed to be in the Bible. It's easy to have your trusting, relying faith seriously shaken, and if you have wrongly placed it in Bible accuracy. Now, I put a lot of faith in Bible accuracy until I started digging and I realized, oh my goodness gracious, I put my faith in the wrong place. I started really looking at all the evidence instead of just books about it. People, you got to really go and look at the people who really know this stuff, right? Not these laymen that come, and say, oh, but I want to defend the faith. That's propaganda. A lot of people go to seminary, and after learning all this, they lose their trusting, relying faith. Well, my faith was not in all this stuff. It was shaken, believe me, as these things were exposed. But I had experiences with the Lord, so I had a relationship with the Lord. So I didn't get completely thrown off my chair, right? So these schools have the nickname cemetery for a reason. A lot of people lose their faith because they see all the questions, they see all the data, and they realize it's not so clear-cut as we've been told. Many people have abandoned their trusting, relying faith because it is based on doctrine that relies on manuscript accuracy. Okay? They base their faith on doctrines that rely on manuscript accuracy. This whole doctrines, creeds of the Christian faith, dogma, theology, it was all created later in the Catholic Church and taken over by the Protestant Church. You can see this in the development of the church. And that's just in the New Testament, the problems, which albeit were copied much more loosely, yes, they were copied much more loosely than the Jews did of their Old Testament. And the reason why they were copied loosely in the early parts of the church is because they didn't view them as Scripture. That term came in, applied to the New Testament, was 208 AD. So for 208 years old, they did not view these writings of Paul or whoever, they didn't view them as authoritative Scripture, the very words of God, and you better not make a mistake. They really didn't. And you can see that. They're adding things all over the place in the margins, and then they move it into the text. And it's very loose. And I was one of those Christians taught by the Church of Christ from 1980 to 83 to be really good at Bible study. My wife, when I moved her into my house when I got married, she saw all these thousands of books and volumes of detailed notes and studies and everything that I had done in all these notebooks, all categorized systematically. And I eventually threw them all away because I realized I had this revelation that it had nothing to do with grammar writings. And if you go on, you'll see that. You'll see that it's not repeating the mistake of the Old Covenant. The Old Covenant was all about writings, and it did them no good. And was that God's idea to give them writings? No. You find out in the New Testament, it says they were disobedient. In Hebrews, it says they were asked, in Exodus 20, they were told through Moses, God told Moses to tell the people of Israel to all come up to the mountain, and God was going to download. He was going to teach them personally. He was going to make them holy. He was going to purge sin from them. And they said, heck no, we'll die up there. They saw the power of God, and they said, no way, there, you go, Moses. So they were disobedient, and because of their disobedience, God had to do permissible will, not the perfect will of God, but the permissible will of God. He had to work with these disobedient Israelites. And you look at all the disobedience they were involved in, but they would have been made holy. They would have been purified in the presence of God. They messed up big time. And so what they ended up getting is writings. Writings that could, all kinds of copying problems, teaching problems, and it goes on and on and on. It was a real mess. It was not God's perfect will. But the whole point, he says, hey, right after they got the writings, Moses says, hey, there's going to be the prophet. That's the Messiah. And when he comes, you got to drop everything. You listen to everything he says. You do whatever he says. And that was all heard. It was all one-on-one. And you just do whatever he says. And Jesus says, I'm going to give you my Holy Spirit, my Spirit, that I'm doing all these amazing things with, and I'm speaking all these things with. He's going to be in you. So now I'm in you, and I'm carrying on my work in you directly. And so there is no writings. There was no intention for any writings. There's not a hint. There's not a hint. Not even a hint. And I'm telling you, I've scoured every single word thousands of times. And you can go look at all the evidence. What you really need to ask yourself is this. Did God really want us to work this hard just to know Him and His will? Look at the work, and they are still scratching their heads, and they're still arguing to this day. All those scholars, you can go online and see them argue. Their papers, their dissertations, their books, they're selling books like crazy. They're all arguing against each other. And is this what God intended in the new covenant? The completely different in kind with His Son? Right? He brought His Son to give us more writings? I don't think so. He said the reason for the writings is just to testify that I was going to come and that you would come to me. And then I would give you genuine life. And the rest is my job. My job. Jesus' job. The Holy Spirit's job. And that's why it says there's only one teacher. There's no more teachers. You're all brethren. Go look at the teachers tab. He says, you're all brethren. There's only one teacher, the Holy Spirit. And so all the gifts of the Spirit were going through people, going through His body. Right? And He says, was this His will? And to make this gnosis, informational knowledge that only puffs your head up, accessible only to the wise and understanding ones? You know, that term, wise and understanding ones, is not a compliment. It's always used very negatively in the New Testament. Right? And that's where the scribes and Pharisees, they were the wise and understanding ones. They're the only ones that can grasp this, you know. All this work, thousands of hours. I've spent thousands of hours. I don't want you to spend thousands of hours. I put it here so you can save yourself a lot of trouble. I did it not primarily to convince anybody. I was doing it primarily pulling on that thread that the Lord was saying, this is not my way. This is not my new covenant way. And I started seeing this, and I started pulling on that thread. And I documented that for myself. And I realized the truth. So I put this all in writing because that's what I was trained to do, you know. I was trained to do that very well. Many manuscript scholars often sit on their findings for many, many years before the public ever gets to see their translations. Oh, isn't that something? You'll never get to see the new manuscripts that were discovered in a Christian community that are older than any other manuscript. You won't even get to see them for years because they're going to make tons of money off, right? That's what they're going to publish. They're going to get their name everywhere in lights. That's what they lived for. That's what they worked for. They went to school for. And there's a lot of ulterior motives. I think most of it has to do with securing publishing rights and more grant money, lots of money to do this research, and then selling books. They sell lots of books. And so I don't want to be them on Judgment Day. God is going to have some words with the scribes and Pharisees and all the Christian Bible students, and I'm one of them, and he's going to have some words, and he says, I didn't say it was going to be this way. You turned it into the same stuff that they did that didn't work. It didn't work for them. And you're just repeating their mistake. It's a trap. So it's a real big trap. So read on before you judge this, okay? I didn't get convinced right off the bat. I had to pull on this thread, keep looking at verses, more verses. I had to see the whole counsel of God before it sank in, and I realized, quoting one verse here and there out of context to prove a doctrine is dangerous, and that's what a lot of people have done over the years to keep people in propaganda, Christian propaganda. It keeps them from the truth. They're afraid they're going to lose their faith if they realize the Bible is highly inaccurate. And there's a lot of struggle to get stuff out of it. There's a lot of struggle to get stuff out of it. And you're really putting your faith in a lot of scholars. You really are. You're putting your faith in a lot of scholars that are all arguing with each other, and they have a lot of ulterior motives. And a lot of the scholars aren't even Christians. Go look them up. That are on these Bible translation teams. They're from other religions, they're atheists, they're scholars in their particular field. And so, wow. So they're the blind leading the blind. That's what Jesus said. They were the blind leading the blind. And that's what we have in Christianity. We have the blind leading the blind. But they don't think of themselves as blind. The scribes and Pharisees, they did not either. They argue with Jesus till they were blue in the face. And they resist the Holy Spirit. That's what Stephen said. You always resist. The Holy Spirit was speaking through prophets, speaking through Jesus. They killed all the prophets and they killed Jesus because they can't handle freshly spoken word of God, right? The rhema word of God. They can't handle it. They have to look at something written down. They have to analyze it. And they're the wise and understanding ones. It leaves all of us out of the picture, right? It's called job security. And we have to listen to them. So, wow, they have to be our leaders, our teachers, our rabbis. But Jesus says, not in the new covenant. Go look at the new covenant page. Not in the new covenant. Go look at the teachers page, right? God bless you. I look forward to your input. Don't beat me up yet. Just keep reading on. If you have questions about this, keep reading on. But if you hear from the Lord, you're going to hear this from the Lord, right? People who know how to hear from the Lord, I hear from the Lord. A lot of people hear from the Lord. You can go to the Lord and He will tell you amazing things about the Bible. He said to my wife, for instance, you know, it's a tricycle. If you want to ride on a tricycle, you can. But I meant for you to fly. I meant for you to fly. So, trying to piece together about God and His will through all these Bible writings, it's an arduous task, but it's like riding a tricycle. It's really hard, but it accomplishes a tricycle level of understanding, a real tricycle level of understanding. So go look at Logos Word of God versus the Rhema Word of God. Huge difference. Huge difference. All right, look forward to hearing from you, and we learn from one another. 1 Corinthians 14, read that whole thing, or look at the Body Ministry tab, and that's what we do down here in the comments, right? That's what we're doing. God bless you. Bye-bye.